And talking about school, what is one thing that all kids should learn at school?
Huh, right now or back in our day? Because I think it's very different.
Oh,
Uh,
I'd love to hear your answer for both then.
uh, I think in our day it was like really more like probably like being organized, rule following. I think it was more important for us, and maybe also like there's a French side to that. And I think for now, I think critical thinking is going to be really key of being able to really question what you see, what you hear, and really be able to go to the root of knowledge every time to really know what is a good source and what is not. I think it is going to be more essential than ever.
Yeah. And what is one thing that all adults should learn at work?
Critical thinking. And I believe that we haven't been raised in a world where truths want truths. Um, and now it's like it's much harder to know what is true and what isn't, and there's so much information that it's really hard to uh, really tread water with that. So I think it's more essential for adults as well. And
Hmm.
from my point of view, from what I see, I feel like there's two common misconceptions that are completely opposite and that coexist. Is either like children are perceived as completely incompetent, unable to do anything on their own, need to be assisted all the time, or they're mini adults. And I think they're neither. I think they're highly capable, but they have some constraints depending on where they are in their development, what is their age, what is their developmental level. So you can't expect a 2 years old to do the same thing as a 10 years old, but you can't expect a 2 years old to do the same thing as a 2.5 years old either. They grow and they change, and so you have to adapt to wherever they are. And I think it's also about providing experiences that are not what they need to develop at that age. So, for instance, I see a trend in parenting where parents want their kids to learn some skills very early on. I see 20, 24 months old that know their ABCs. And for that, they spend a lot of time of just going through the ABCs, flashcards, screens, and what is the point of knowing your ABCs at 24 months old? Like at 24 months old, what you're supposed to know is having very rich sensory experience to really work on that sensory integration that is essential at that age. Work on fine motor skills, work on gross motor skills, climbing, falling. So getting all of that part of your development engaged. Deep social interaction, looking at faces, learning to read emotion, understanding what's going on, experimenting, and really like I think sometimes parents like get them into reading, and they should get them into physics. Like what happens if I put the block and it falls? Then what happens if I put two blocks? What happens if it's bigger, if it's smaller? So they should be learning about physics at 2. And I think that there is that risk of sometimes pushing parents through many different reasons, pressure to succeed, marketing, to teach their kids things that's they're not hardwired to learn that at that age. So they take longer and it takes time away from what they are actually hardwired to learn in this specific context. So when you look at a teenager's brain, they are pretty vulnerable to those kind of things because they are at the age. We know there's like an insynchrony in the way their brain develop, where first what develop is the rewarding system. Like they look for reward, they look for instant gratification more, even more than kids. And that's not where like and a bit later, so there's a delay in the development. That's where like the impulsivity kind of reduces. So their ability to inhibit behaviors happen a bit later. So that's why like they crave the rewards. And it's also an age where like social skills take more and more space, where it becomes more and more like fine in the like there's a fine tuning, if you want, in like in social skills. So it creates kind of a vulnerable environment if you think about it with social media. So there's really a way of like thinking of how do we develop, like if we were to start over, like how do we develop social media to kind of help adolescents develop better social skills and to not fall into the trap of getting instant gratification in what they do, but like to learn more progressively. And like large language model, like they just became more mainstream over the past few months. So it's going to be interesting to see how it develops, but it's also going to be important to really consider children and their development. Like we know that their um, access to symbolism and understanding what is real and what is not changes and evolves with age. So what they can understand from what is a chatbot, is it real, is it not real, is it a real person, is going to be complex, and we are going to really need to work on understanding that and to conduct more research on this aspect so that then we get to guidelines that are very specific by age, because the access children should have to it needs to be different by age. But even once they have access to it, what they can do with it, how it's represented, like should it take human form, should it take human form, should it look like an animal, should it speak in full sentences or speak in a specific way so that children can really realize from the beginning that it's not human form. Like those are like questions I have. I don't have the answers about it, but I really think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's already things done on robotics in children, but a lot more needs to be done to really make sure we create the right regulations and guidelines for children, and to really like safeguard their social, emotional, and affective development.